This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good morning. As we do every single Friday, we have the Property Show with Azura Rahman. Once in a while, we get into a nice little green mode, and this time around, we're talking about creating green buildings and spaces. Definitely a very hot topic, I think, among a lot of builders.
It is, it's a trend, and perhaps, there is a real need to create greener properties. Residents and developers have made this call for, greener properties. And fittingly enough, the non-profit organization Eco-Nights have teamed up with LBS Bina Group Berhad to host the Anugerah Hijau Green Space Contest, which is the second time that they're doing this.
Yes, so it's not I remember hearing about it before.
This time round, they've chosen a different theme. They concentrated on an outdoor recreational area last time. They found that the challenge was a bit too easy, so they're looking at developing an eco-friendly campus for an academy of sustainability. So
wow.
It all sounds very noble. And I spoke to Yasmin Rashid, the founder and president of Eco-Nights. This year's theme is a bit intriguing, I would say. It's about coming up with a design for an Academy of Sustainability. What do you mean by that, and what did you have in mind when you put that category into place?
Well, there's two sides to it. One was when we launched the architecture design category called Green Space last year. Last year's theme was to create a recreational park, and we felt that it was slightly too easy for youths to come up with ideas how a sustainable recreational park should look like. And so we went back to the drawing board and said, if Malaysian youths were to really start thinking outside their boxes and start pushing creativity up to a level of, where you can innovate, we gotta really put a tough theme out there. And the idea of designing a sustainable campus came out because we found that it was quite an oxymoron that a lot of students are talking or learning about sustainability in college and universities, but the environment they're in the academic institution is not necessarily sustainable.
Right.
So it's like I'm learning to be an amazing person in the future that will take care of the environment, but I walk into a building that has total disregard for the environment. And we felt that if we can be the catalyst for this category and get young people to tell us what do they see if they want to walk in the campus that's not only designed in a green way, but it's also managed in a green way. So it's a mixture of, hard engineering, design, but it's also making them look at how can what they design be a sustainable living space.
Right, so it's almost to be inspired by what's surrounding them immediately in that sense then.
Yeah.
And you talk about a sustainable campus. Does it mean it has to be a place of learning? Does it have to be an academic temple of sorts? What do you mean by that?
I like that, academic temple. That's really good. Well, Eco-Nights has a long-term vision that eventually we would have our own space, which could be a land, and we're looking at 5 acres, which is what they are given as a brief, because we hope to actually build our own Academy of Sustainability at some point. And yes, it will be slightly academic because it's called an academy, but it's not mainstream academic elements. Why is because I believe an Academy of Sustainability should not have any age barrier, should not be from a formal education perspective. It should be an academy where everyone can get together, self-organize, and do something good for the community.
So in many ways, it's just
a learning space.
A learning space. So it doesn't have to be a school per se in that sense.
No.
Then. So what was the brief that was exactly given to the participants this year?
We gave them the space, which is 5 acres. We basically told them we're going to need space for classrooms. We're going to need space for workshops. We also want in that academy to have enough space to do permaculture or sustainable agriculture and so forth. So I think it's a pretty long, extensive list. And we did say that we want to make sure the place harvests rainwater, uses solar panels and so forth. So we gave them a range of variables that were meant to be teasers for them to then look at how creative they can get. So we kind of it's almost like giving them Lego blocks and then kind of working on how they can build something out of those Lego blocks.
In terms of building materials, is there anything that you've actually stipulated as well within?
No, we give them a free hand. So we've got a range of crazy ideas from, using mud and recycled cement and even all used shipping containers.
The thing is, when you mention this, it just brings to mind that green school in Bali, for example, completely made out of bamboo. Have you had participants who are actually inspired by living examples of, such academies that use sustainable principles in their building?
Yes, some of them are inspired with that perspective, but some of them are also very driven from an engineering perspective and looking at not just the facade, but like how water can be captured efficiently underground, for instance, or how the rotation or the location of the structures, like if you have an academy that's facing north-south, so you get, the rising sun and the setting sun. So it's a combination of looking at infrastructure, but also what needs to be done inside those infrastructures. And because a lot of them can basically sketch really well, can design really well, but if we ask them to explain what their design function is, we lose half of them. So that's actually a big concern for us.
The communication of the idea, basically, right?
You got to design with the perspective that you're designing for humans to use that space.
Right.
So we wanted to make them more humanized, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word to use. So that they're more sensitive to the needs of the people that will be actually using that space.
Now, it sounds like a tall order, Yasmin, especially comparing to the task that was given at hand last year. Who are some of the participants this year then? I mean, what kind of backgrounds have you selected your entrance from this year?
Most of them, I would say, are from architecture, from design schools. A few of them are from engineering background. So we have quite a good mix.
Right.
And this category was open to youths between the ages of 14 and 29. Naturally, the best ideas in the finalists were mainly university students.
Right.
So I think this category is definitely something, not to say that the high school students are not good enough, but I think in terms of concepts, philosophies, and also design, I think the university students are the right age that will understand what this category is all about.
And I guess it requires a certain degree of technical sophistication at the same time as well.
Yeah.
And you recently had a workshop to kind of streamline the processes, so to speak, for the final designs, haven't you? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, so what happens is, out of, I think, about 50 designs that we received from all over the country, 10 of them are selected as finalists, and they're selected by a panel of mentors and judges who are from the design field and also engineering and architecture. And what the workshop was all about in June was basically to kind of relook again at what they submitted and beef up their knowledge and understanding about what sustainable design is all about. So for Green Space finalists, it's normally the toughest workshop, because it's really about drilling into them to be more, like I said, to be more human in your design, to be more organic. And this new word I learned, to be more biophilic. That means instead of just looking at one way of designing or construction, you explore 10 other different ways. For an example, many of them say this area, even though it's undulated with dirt terrain, should be flattened, and therefore you build the structure. And which is for me something as a train of thought not too sustainable. You should be looking at elements around you that are natural and build around it so that it becomes organically infused between development and environment. So we tried to kind of like steer them away from this, slash and
burn
and build on top, when actually you can integrate, say, a hill and have say classes somehow built within that hill, instead of just dynamite that area and build on top of it.
Right, instead of just starting from a blank slate, so to speak. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm speaking to Yasmin Rashid, founder of Econites, talking about the Anugerah Hijau 2014, the green space category in particular. We'll be talking about some of the more promising submissions for that category right after the break on The Property Show. It's Azura Rahman on The Property Show, and I'm speaking to Yasmin Rashid, and she's the founder of Econites, talking about the Anugerah Hijau 2014, the green space category, where they have submissions on creating green spaces, and this year's theme is about creating an Academy of Sustainability. So what are some of the more promising submissions that you've had so far? Can you let us know, right, Yasmin?
I, of course, have some preferences.
Everyone has their favorites.
Thank God I don't remember who they are and what the designs were. But as I was going through all the top 10 finalists, I saw a few that really looked into reusing a lot of existing materials around us. For instance, I like a particular design that was, the entire academy was basically built on a modular system using shipping containers. Why I love it is because shipping containers is abundant. And it's very flexible. It can be vertical, it can be horizontal, and it's modular, so you can extend from 2-story to 3-story very easily. And fourthly, I think because you can easily break them up and rebuild again. So why I love shipping containers is because it allows flexibility in redesigning the campus quite sustainably. And if, say, you want a classroom to be mobile, you can always just put it in a truck and and ship it away, and you have your whole little container in a classroom shipped somewhere else if you need to change location and so forth. So that was one design that really captured my attention. And a lot of it that in general I loved were very simple. I believe the simpler the design, the easier it is for people to feel approachable. And also, a lot of the designs that were finalists didn't really make full use of the 5 acres.
Right.
So it actually allowed some natural space to be there, which is brilliant, because many, I think, was full on built up on 5 acres, which is what we see every day in our lives, right? So they realized the importance of empty space. And that I find was very beautiful in most of the designs. There was actually only 2.5 acres developed, but the other 2.5 was a rainwater harvesting system, was a lake, was where we plant our food, where we run activities and so forth.
Seemingly empty spaces, but actually still used
With
for functional purposes,
yes,
right? Okay.
yes.
The thing is, also when it comes to these designs, do you also find that they are something that can be carried out in real life, already existing in real life? Do they need to be practicable at the same time?
That's why I like the shipping container one, because you see a lot of it, even just right outside here, because it's so practical and it's so available. Design evolves through time. However, I believe prior to even, say, property developers or construction companies actually doing this on the ground, you would need to have manpower, the right mindset.
Right.
And that's why we do Anugerah Hijau. It's basically to, for lack of a better word, brainwash today's kids to look at design not just from an engineering perspective or construction perspective, but look at it from a very broad, sustainable perspective, because many of us are not designing too much for the future, and I think that concept has to change. So this program, this platform, Anugerah Hijau, is basically to bring them out from their comfort zone and make them see a global picture of how design plays bigger roles, whether economically, socially, or environmentally.
And I imagine also just to have sustainability as a de facto criteria when it comes to a new development or making a new build.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in PJ, I think there is a directive that any buildings built after 2009 must have a rainwater harvesting system. However, I don't think it's been followed through. And it's really not a tough thing to do, because you already have a space and it rains abundantly. And in a time of crisis, we would definitely appreciate that extra bit of water we have saved up in the building, instead of using clean pipe water, versus that. So I think guidelines are there. You've got the GBI and so forth like that. But it's not just following a list of things you have to do, but it's also having, like I said, staff or colleagues who understand the concept of sustainability.
Well, one of your partners is LBS, obviously, and they obviously place an importance on being sustainable. Do you find that more developers are headed this way and doing it in a meaningful way, as opposed to, like you're saying, just checking off boxes in a list?
I think LBS, it's actually quite a beautiful relationship in how this naturally happened. But between us and LBS, we're looking at ways how to learn from each other, because I'm actually curious in how developers work as well. And one crucial part is how LBS and Eco-Knights can work to understand a basic need in this underlying philosophy of sustainability. So I look up to them for a lot of guidance and try to understand how developers work. And I think simultaneously, LBS is also looking directly into this program to see what is it that they need to invest in today. For instance, mindsets or youth mindsets, and how can they leverage on this to also change the way business is done or construction is done on their side. So it's a two-way educational process, I think, that is quite organically developing right now.
So having these submissions on your plate, having these entrants on your plate, what's the likelihood of any of these designs being built?
Well, like I said, Econoids has its selfish goal of eventually running a physical space where we will call home and office, where all our camps will be held instead of, renting spaces out there. So for us, we have 10 amazing blueprints that will help us look at how the future of our Econoids office or Academy of Sustainability will look like. And it's brilliant because it's tapping into the creative power of young Malaysians. And I'm excited to see how the 3D models would look like, because all we need is one design or even a mashup of all 10 designs. And you're looking at the recipe to our own home already.
Okay, keeping our fingers crossed for that one then,
definitely.
Yasmin. When will the competition winners be announced then?
It will be announced on October 18th. So at this stage, they are actually working on their prototypes. And on October 18th, it will be a judging ceremony that will be done by the panels of mentors and judges, and which includes LBS as well. And that's the part where they would have to defend their design. It's very stressful for Green Space because the judges and mentors are really, I would say, very serious people in advocating for sustainability in this field. And I think architecture and design it's a very tough field to penetrate. So either you got it or you got to go back to the drawing board. And I'm very nervous. I'm nervous for them. I think they feel it too, because we're in the business of creating the next hero in this field. I mean, if the winner gets it right, obviously they get an internship with LBS and so forth. But if that winner gets it right and what he or she designs is something that the country needs in the future, then you've got one extra person in this country to do it.
And hopefully you have created advocates out of the rest of the entrants at the same time in creating sustainable design at the same time as well. So all the best to the entrants, and also, keeping our fingers crossed for when this will actually come to fruition, perhaps.
Yes.
I'm
manifesting it now.
Yes. And that's Yasmin Rashid from Econoids talking about the Green Space category for the Anugerah Hijau 2014. If you've missed any bits of this interview at all, don't forget to download podcasts from www.bfm.my.
I believe that the competition will also feature an impressive lineup of judges, from what I heard, including Serena Hijaz. It'll be exciting to see the winning designs, what they'll look like, but I actually am more curious to see how it's actually built. It's great to see when it actually becomes, 3D material.
I know. While most of these designs tend to be conceptual, but as Yasmin said, you never know. You may just find the Academy of Sustainability in your neighborhood if you've got 5 acres of land next to where you're living, for example. Especially seeing how more environmentally friendly and conscious Malaysians are becoming, right?
Absolutely. I'm also waiting for my 5 acres of land next to me. So actually, if you're looking for something to invest in and don't have those 5 acres of land, there are a few new property launches, right, this week?
Yes. The first one for you to consider is The Hub at SS2. Of course, this is SS2 in PJ, developed by SDB SS2 Developments in Durian Berhad. 276 designer suites, i.e. condos to you and me on freehold land, with a built-up of 517 to just over 1,300 square feet, starting from 550,000 ringgit to just over 1 million, with the price per square foot from 715 ringgit to 1,100. I imagine that'll be a very popular one, Nadia.
Yes, definitely. And if you are looking for something a bit more on the fun side, there's Skies, and that's with a Z, by the Skies Jelutong in Bukit Jelutong, Selangor. It's developed by Urban Courtyards in Durian Berhad. I've never heard of them before, but it looks interesting. 222 service apartments on freehold land. The built-up's about 813 to just over 1,300 square feet. The listing price, as far as I can see, 595,000 to 967,000.
Well, Bukit Jelutong, it's a very mature development now. So.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see what that looks like. So that's the show for this week. Next week, we'll be bringing our legal clinic with Chris Tan from Tur Associates. A lot of you have shown interest in that, actually. And he'll be ready to answer all your queries on things property, whether you are buying, selling, renting. Send in all your property conundrums to inquiries@bfm.my.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.